Welcome to Recovery Unleashed, the podcast where we dive deep into transformation, healing, high performance, and recovery. I'm your host, Hannah Dalby. I'm the founder of Recovery Jungle, Recovery Unleashed. I'm an integral alchemist, food coach, a recovery expert, and also a retired professional Muay Thai fighter and current jiu-jitsu lover. In each episode, we explore what it truly takes to break free from addiction, trauma, self-sabotage, and unlocking a life truly filled with energy, success, and peace. Through my very own story of addiction recovery and raw conversations with experts, coaches, athletes, healers, we uncover the tools and mindset shifts needed to master recovery in every area of your life. This isn't just about healing, this is about unleashing your full potential. If you're ready to reclaim your life, tune in, do the work, and let's rise together. In our inaugural episode of Recovery Unleashed, I have the honor of speaking with Rachael Thompson Phillips, a spiritual entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years experience in the spiritual and wellness industry. Rachael was the first person to explore my inner world with me. Back when I was training 19 hours a week, still grappling with substance issues and hadn't yet addressed my emotional struggles. She served as my massage therapist and intuitive guide. In this episode, we reflect on those transformational times, discussing how healing can look different for everyone, and delve into Rachael's current work in teaching massage therapists to connect with the emotional body. Join us for a very heartfelt conversation about personal growth, intuition, and our diverse paths to healing. All right, so today I would like to welcome Rachael Thompson Phillips, who is a massage therapist of all sorts of magic kinds, an international psychic, and actually at one stage my business coach.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here. So thanks for having me.
No worries. So the reason I've called you in specifically for this is you were a part of my journey. I guess it would have been maybe 2015.
Yes, I was thinking about that. It's probably close to 8 to 10 years we've known each other.
Yeah. So at the time I was training quite heavily at Black Dragon Kai in Beaudesert, and Rachael was my massage therapist. I used to drive all the way out to the Gold Coast because she was actually the best.
Thank you. Still am.
Still am. Really interesting though is I had not gotten clean yet. So I was still quite heavily into drugs, hiding it from people still. So no one knew. I was training as though I was an athlete, and I was just a little bit manic because of all of the training. And Rachael I feel like she knew in some way.
100%. I think for myself and where my expertise in all the things that I do is that I always think people use massage as the door to come in as something's wrong with my body, but what they're actually wanting is, hey, I've actually got something on the inside and I need some help, but I'm only going to use the doorway of massage to do this. So as soon as someone came in, it was like immediately I'd be like, there's some stuff going on there.
Yeah. I remember really specifically like being on the table, and I'd come in for I'd book in like hour and a half sessions, right?
Yeah.
Because my body was actually not okay. And you'd say things like, wow, your mind's really going at 1,000 miles an hour today. And I'd be like, oh, quieten it, like slow down. she mustn't find out. How much did you know? Like, is it an inkling, or is it like, I know something's going on here?
The body always has a way of being able to communicate whatever is going on internally, so you can't hide.
Yeah.
Unless you take your brain outside of your body, you're unable to hide. But I think that is why people come to see to me for the style of treatment that I do, is because they do want to be seen. They do want to be heard. They do want to be validated, but they have that conversation in themselves. But when they are actually seen and heard, it's like, oh my God, someone's actually seeing me. This is foreign. Hide, push it away, deny it. But yet there's a deeper calling on the inside that's saying, please help me.
So it's a soul calling. It's not a conscious calling that's going, I really need to be seen and heard. It's the soul going,
one consciously.
Please.
A little bit more so now today, but actually for very many years, of all the years I've been doing massage, which is nearly 30 years, it's always been on an unconscious, but it's the soul. It's like the soul always talks to me that says, what little goodies is hiding in there? And for me, it's just like, there's just this treasure chest. It was never ever that someone's damaged or there's a problem wrong with them. It was always, there's this hidden little gem that's been put inside of like a little, almost like a treasure chest, and it's the door is opening. And how do I help them with this to normalize it? Because when we think about mental health or problems or stuff like that, there's a stigmatization that comes with it. So for me, I always wanted to make it so that it was a normal conversation. Hey, your body's doing this. What's going on here? Make it really normal, but we can dig deep, but it's done in just a really casual way. I think when we talk about things that are going on in the inside, we always need to think there's something deep and dark and mysterious and scary, and I need to push this away. When we remove that and make it normal and have a real, one of my skills with massaging is, how do I have a really deep conversation that's just so casual that they don't even know they're having it? And once that casual conversations come up, their soul is like, oh my God, I've got this place to be able to share everything. And it just comes out. The amount of clients that I've had that said, I have never, ever shared that with someone. And I always look at that as such a humbling experience that I've provided an opportunity for them to be able to talk about it, but two, safe enough for them to be able to share that, knowing that it's one of their deepest secrets.
Yeah.
So I always feel like I'm a keeper of secrets.
Yeah. So it's like providing a safe holding space while also probably releasing things from within the body while you're working. That's kind of like, I need to go somewhere now.
100%. I would always just let people know that this part of your body, this means this is what's going on emotionally. Is there anything of relevance to that?
Yeah.
I would always use the door that they came in, which was massage. This is what's going on with your body. This is the representation of the emotion that's trapped in that area. If you want to, we can explore this. And I would just make it such a casual conversation. And therefore, because the body is always communicating to me, but I need to be able to relay that in a way that's not confronting, not judgmental. It's just casual. And it's just, the door's there if you want to have that conversation. If not, I wanted to educate people. Because if you've got something, an emotion trapped in your body, until it's released, or not so much released, until it is processed, the body's going to keep relaying that information back to your body.
This is when the injuries come.
That's right. So that's why it'd be like, okay, well, if we're not going to explore this, you now know that the moment you walk out the door, the time that this comes back, and I've hurt that same area again, I know what that means.
Yeah.
Because I think the most important thing about the work that I do is about educating people. People don't know what's going on in their body. That's why they come to me. There's more than just a physical realm.
100%,
we have all of these parts of ourselves that live inside of our physical body that are all needing avenues to be able to express it. The more I could educate people about what actually was going on a physical level, but what was going on in a mental and emotional level, it gave them the option of whether they wanted to address that. But it's like that saying, once you know, you can't unknow.
Right.
Once you know your shoulder means this, you can't not know that. So I think educating people and helping them to learn to understand more about themselves was something that I always found like super important to educate people on that mental and emotional level, on the physical level, so that if that injury or that area became sore, one, they know what's going on mentally, emotionally, they can then process, take an opportunity to assess what's going on in their world so it doesn't have to escalate. But then because that emotion has got stuck in the physical structure, what are some of the things that they can do to help on that emotional level? Every time you stretch is stretching the emotions. It's releasing the toxicity. Yeah. So I think it's important. People don't know what they don't know. So the only way they're going to know is by you sharing that knowledge that you have. And I feel like that was something I always felt was a part of my responsibility to do.
Yeah. I actually remember the day really well when you said, I think you've got something that needs to be released. I'm pretty sure you brought up Ryan actually.
Yes.
And said that you need to deal with this. So I had a boyfriend die in a car accident when I was 18, and I really thought I would dealt with it because time had passed. And it's a really common thing, right? People go, well, time has passed, so I'm okay now. I'm no longer crying about it. I'm no longer actively having an issue in my life. So it's done. I don't have that anymore.
Yeah, the grieving's over.
The grieving's over.
Move on.
It's move on. And you've said to me, like, you need to release this. I'm going, that's ridiculous. Like, it's so done. And we sat in session. You know, my massage therapist now putting me in this little tiny room, and now we're doing some weird woo-woo stuff. It was my first experience in it, right? Like my absolute first experience in it at 23 years old. And there was a lot of shit there.
We carry around, for me, I think the thing I've learned more prominently over the last few years is that as humans, we think we're designed to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof, that we're supposed to just be able to move through shit so quickly. But we don't. We are actually one, really, really strong and resilient, but we are so incredibly sensitive and soft. And if you only nurture one part, which is that strength and resilience, if that's all you're building, you're denying that soft and gentle nurturing part within yourself. And in order to heal, you actually require the balance of both. And the strong and the resilience comes from the mental aptitude, but the softness and nurturing comes from the emotion. If you're only taking care of the mental things, you're only logically processing things. You're not allowing your emotional body to be healed. And that is where, as you were saying, like you think you've dealt with it because you've dealt with it on the mental level. So I'm done. But there's these emotions, and it's something that's new out there over, probably more prominently over the last 5 years, is now becoming more consciously aware around what are our emotions, how do they get trapped in our body, but how do we articulate them, how do we honor them, and didn't even know they even existed in my body.
Right. Yeah.
So it's all new.
Yeah. It's interesting how you say like really hard, resilient part of it. And even that journey of like, okay, well, yeah, I was a drug addict. I was abusing those things, but then thinking that I had healed by becoming a fighter and I was no longer doing all of the drugs, but I was a fighter. And so I was like, well, look, I can now hide behind this athlete version of me. And actually what I was doing is exactly the same thing, running 20 Ks every day.
You were still abusing yourself in just a different way.
And I was still able to hide. So all of my reactions, all of my stuff that would come up, I could blame it on.
Justify it.
I could justify it all.
And how many conversations did I used to say to you, Hannah, you're burning yourself out. Hannah, what are you doing? Like myself being an athlete in my younger days, the one thing I knew was that you didn't need to train like you were to be great. You're actually breaking yourself.
It took me until 2 years ago to actually have that land. And I actually probably longer than that because it was an ayahuasca journey that was like, you need to quit fighting. And in undoing that and sitting in that, I was like, I really have been overdoing it for 13 years.
100%, but it's also told, you're also told that exercise is healthy. It's good for you. So you're like, well, I can be naughty on this side and I can balance that out with the health. Right. But when it moves outside of that healthy structure, it's no longer healthy. It's now just an avenue of abusing ourselves, but it's just done in what we classify as healthy spectrums. Yeah. It's not healthy.
So it was approved by everyone. My Instagram looked amazing. Everyone was like, oh, you look so good. Even the advice I was giving people, I wish I could take back because it was the advice I was using to live this life, right? How terrible of me to do that. And I was actually really sick. Like I had no period for 7 years. My digestion was gone. My brain didn't work. I was an asshole to everyone.
Your emotions were always this roller coaster.
So insane. I couldn't connect with anyone and I didn't want to. It was, I'm on a diet, I can't go, which was an excuse to not have to be in connection because I wasn't in connection with myself. And then so how could I possibly connect with anyone else?
And not just that, if you're hiding parts of yourself, you can't deeply connect.
Exactly.
Because if you deeply connect with someone, what happens if I open up the door and share, it slips out, then I've got nowhere to hide. So I'll keep people at a distance in order to protect myself. But we don't realise that in the process of protecting ourselves, we're also hurting ourselves at the same time too. It's just done differently.
Yeah. And I think that this is one of the things I am so passionate about now is this ability for people to hide through things that look really healthy.
Yeah. So
there's like the running community has gone batshit. And it's like, okay, well, how interesting, like what are people running away from? Some of it's beautiful. Like I don't have anything against running. I don't have anything against CrossFit or Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu. Like I still train all the time, but it's when it becomes neurotic and manic that it becomes hiding.
Yeah. Well, how many times did you come for a massage and you had broken bones, you had skin missing off your feet? It was like trying to put you back together again so you could go and break yourself again. And that it was like almost like a jigsaw puzzle. I'll put you back together again temporarily. And it's only just going to put a Band-Aid on things and you'd go and do everything you possibly could to break it, to then put it back to, and that was your journey at that time. And you had so many talents, like your marketing business, you were talented. Everything you touched, you were talented in. Yeah. But it was still at a distance. Yeah. No one could ever penetrate. Get close. Yeah. And when I'd always know if I'd ask a question that was getting through those barriers, it would be like your brain would almost like have a synapsis where it would just like stop and it'd be like, oh my God, is someone actually seeing me? Yet I always felt like that's what you actually really wanted was, how do I? So when someone comes to me in that frame, I have to find a way that doesn't hit up against that protective barrier, but how do we navigate through this barrier that keeps you in that comfort zone, but also gives you food for thought? Because I would always see your brain come in at 100 miles an hour, but when you left, it was now in 100 miles an hour because you got different thought process and you're like, oh, this is different. And because you always did go away and think about it. Because every time you came back for the next treatment, you'd be like, I really thought about X, Y, and Z, and this is what I came up with. So it was, you always did want to go on that journey. You just didn't know how to get there.
Yeah.
But we had to tread carefully.
I think that's a really good point from a addiction recovery perspective from all addictive things is can we let people have their dummy while we're teaching them the things they need to be able to let it go? You know, I've got a brother that's stuck deeply in some bad situations and, you know, people going, we just need to get him off. We just need to like make it go away. And it's like,
just snap your finger and it's magic's done. And
right. And to honor that this is someone's actual safety blanket to be able to keep them okay in the physical world and then slowly give them the things that they need so by the time they can let it go, they actually have all the tools and the knowledge and the skills to be able to function after that.
And also, I think the more that you explore within, the more you actually get to know who you are. And I feel like that's always been our journey. And we no longer sooner get to know who we are, and then we have this evolution of growth and we've got to go and find who we are again. The reason I said that is because we think that healing is supposed to look like a certain way.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like tears and all this and I've done heaps of healing and have got plenty of healing modalities underneath my belt. But for me, I just always felt like that was just not my identity around what healing does. Sometimes it's just having a conversation. It's dropping a seed. It's opening up the door for them to go and explore that little bit further. And when they've got something they want to know, they can come back to you. It doesn't have to look like you're literally falling apart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I wanted to be able to bring to other people to also help them if they thought that that's how healing looked like, that it doesn't have to look like that. Because in all honesty, when I did this healing course, a crystal healing, and this girl was just like howling, I was like, that I was more traumatized by watching that, and I was like, that shit is not for everyone. Healing isn't just a one-off session. It's, as you know,
it's a lifetime.
the good old
it's a lifetime.
onion analogy.
Yeah.
You just unravel one thing, and then something else happens, and another part of you gets unraveled, and it's not just a one-size-fits-all. You may feel that to talk about this certain type of topic, that's the type of environment that you need to heal. But for this different type of healing, different type of experience or emotion or trauma or healing that you require, that actually requires this. So it's understanding that it's just never ever a one size fits all. So just keep exploring, keep being open, keep experimenting, but also bringing back to your core identity of, I know this works for me. So therefore you can get to the stage where you actually don't need to go to groups. You actually know exactly what it is that you need, and you can give that to yourself.
So that's a big jump, right? Because I feel like most people, you're saying here, like, do I need this type of healing or this type of healing? And people don't even know what they need. Do I need to scream? Do I need nurturing? To even label that and give it articulation of what they need in that moment is so far away from people's vocabularies and people's understanding. And this is why they're hiding, right? They can't even articulate it.
Yeah. And I think it's that I think as humans, one of our biggest fears is judgment.
Yeah.
You don't want to go across and expose yourself and then be judged for it. And I always say to people with this, and this took me a while for it to hit my own self, and it was like this epiphany one day. We think that other people are judging us, but it's not. It's our own judgment of ourselves, that you're going to judge yourself that, hey, I went to this room and I screamed and I yelled, and then all of a sudden, because it was so foreign and new, but I loved it, I'm going to judge myself. So, no, I can't do this. It takes a while to, I think, whenever you find that something's not working, just explore, and intuitively, shit is just going to show up. The right healing group will show up for you for this. The right bit of knowledge will come up. It's just a matter of how open you are to being able to accept that everything we need is always brought into our world at that exact right time.
And being
it's a
able to
matter
listen.
of whether you're open to receiving it and at what level, because some things that we've carried for a long time, there are levels in which to be able to get that core. You can't, like example with your boyfriend that passed away, we think we've done all this work, but we've worked through 1, 2, 3, but realistically there might be 7 parts within that whole journey to heal, but we just don't know what that is.
Oh, look, it's been 13 years, 15 years, right, since that.
Yeah.
And a month ago, I was doing some writing. One of my coaches said, I want you to start writing your life story from about 12. And the stuff I started remembering. So there was more things that I had shoved, 15 years later, I'd shoved that far down. I was like, oh, wow, like after 7 years of therapy every week and plant medicine journeys and, being able to sit with my own emotions when things come up and thinking I'm really quite good at it, and to have something that I completely forgotten as a memory as a 15-year-old.
Memories, I think the more that things hurt, the more we bury them. But I always like to think that humans are like diamonds, that there's these different aspects of ourselves and each aspect reveals something different. So when we have an experience that we store within ourselves, we have different dimensions, different perspectives, because we have different emotions that are attached to that experience. So we can't just look at it from a one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Healing is multidimensional. Pain is multidimensional. You cannot just look at it from a one kaleidoscope type thing, because you're only going to get a one part healing that actually may require 8. So I think the one thing that came up for myself and listening to you is like always putting that idealism, that, well, I looked at that, so it should be done.
Right.
Putting that thinking, because we haven't been taught that it may take more than 1 or 2 goes, and you may even find years down the track something else pops up. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed. Should it really matter how long it takes? I mean, we all want it to be over and done with, because we as humans, we're impatient as. We just want shit done, move on.
And it's actually the case with all the things, right? We want to do one time we could put this effort into the business and now we should be millionaires. And one time we put effort into training and now we should be world champions,
Yes, yeah.
And it actually takes time and evolving and for things to fall apart so it can be brought back together again, like over and over and over again, like this death and rebirth over and over and over again. And that's where you really, really rise.
100%. And that's what naturally goes instinctually inside of ourselves. Our cells are born, they go through their own processes, and then they die and new ones come.
Can we allow the death and the rebirth?
And we don't even think about that, because it happens on such a completely unconscious pathway. We don't think about breathing, we don't think about digestion, none of those kind of things. But yet when we look at other ways that our body is processing, we put so much expectation, so much pressure, and so much judgment on ourselves. But it's not something that is openly discussed. Or what do you think about that? Or people don't know how to have, as we were talking earlier, how to have those uncomfortable conversations. If someone was to say, like, for example, you've still got stuff coming up, for someone to go, you know what, that's actually okay. Like, let's talk about it. Whereas before it's like, come on, like, get your shit together. Don't worry about it. Move on.
I actually find it quite difficult now when people, like, I share a lot,
Sharing has never been a problem.
No. But I'll have people in my life that aren't here and haven't quite gotten there yet, and they're saying to me, haven't you done enough work yet? Haven't you been to enough ceremony? Haven't you done enough therapy? Like, how many issues have you goddamn got? And it's like, that's actually the culture out there.
We feel like there has to be something wrong to actually go explore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's definitely coming out now, is that you don't need to have the go-to word at the moment is trauma.
Yeah.
Everyone's, goddamn, no one gets through life without trauma.
Right.
We all just went through trauma.
We chose it to come here.
But we had trauma just not long ago with COVID. That's a form of trauma.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be these great big catastrophes in our life for us to be able to explore them. We're just turning it into a point where it's actually okay to explore who we are, because for me, and as I say, this is just my belief, I feel like that's one of the biggest roles that we learn on this world, is trying to know who we are, because we don't know who we are, because we are a combination of our families, DNA that goes on for generations. And then the world is changing so much. So who you were 5 years ago, you're not the same person now. Learning to explore yourself should not be something that's considered you have to only be doing that because you're healing. No, it is awesome to go and explore these parts within yourself. And if we take out the proposal of it needs to be healed, we don't actually need to be healed. We just need to give ourselves permission to explore what was there. What little gem did I put in that treasure chest? And how can I be okay with being able to explore it?
I had a coach say to me that it's not the that we need to fix things and change things, and it's not even like always childhood things, but it's just a story and a belief system that served us in a moment and it's now outdated.
Yep.
So it's not, oh, I have trauma and I'm broken. It's just I had a belief system that was really serving me for a while, which is now completely outdated. So can I have a look at that and maybe just let that go and have a new one that serves me now? And that's when it does, I feel like, become less about healing and more about becoming
learning about yourself.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dr. Gabor Mate, I think that's how you pronounce it, he's a trauma specialist.
Yeah.
He's a psychologist and all these other things. And he comes out and honestly says it's never the trauma that is the problem. It is the story behind the trauma. And I think as we learn, grow and evolve, we have so many stories we have told ourselves. We've heard so many stories from other people.
About
We're
ourselves.
then bombarded in a world that is just information overload, that we start to become so congested with so many stories that we don't know what story is true now and what stories are not part of your identity. But as humans, we like to hoard. We hold everything in and we're afraid that if we let some of those stories go, who am I going to be? And that is really scary because you know yourself how many healings you've done when you never come out the same person. And it is scary because you don't know the person who you're going to be. But the more you do it, the more you can strip away so many layers of those stories that don't need to be there, because any form of healing has multidimensional and multi-layered. You take care of one healing story and rewrite that one story, it eliminates all the other stories that have become subsidiaries of that one story. So they just get eliminated. That's a beautiful thing. Sometimes you just don't need to do like 50 million types of healings, but if you work on those core things, and I think if we learn to just address things immediately in the moment, which is not something that we have been taught. We've been taught to bury our emotions. We've been taught to not address things because we feel that if we have those uncomfortable conversations, it has to be done out of anger or angst or something like that. But if we learn to be able to identify what's going on, articulate them, communicate what's going on, and it's not always necessarily with someone else, it's giving yourself permission to be able to speak what you feel is your version of what you take away from that experience. And the more that you can give yourself that permission to do that in a way that is definitely not toxic or negative, and you know what, sometimes it will be that way, but even so, still honor it. That's all we as humans want, to be seen, heard, validated, loved, nurtured.
How can we show someone that, or how can we take people from in a journey that's like, well, yeah, you are running too much, you are working too much, you are Instagramming too much, you are drinking too much, you whatever, it's just in excess and manic and neurotic, and start a really simple, slow place to go, well, how can I connect back in now to myself now, and how can I articulate what I'm actually feeling, and how can I articulate to someone else and actually be in some kind of real connection?
That's a really good question. For me, I think we already, and just correct me if this doesn't land with you, but you knew that you were overdoing it.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how many times I told you. You just didn't hear it from me. You heard it from everyone. A person that is doing things on an excess behavior already knows. It's a matter of when they take, I listened to this podcast on the way up, and it was, the topic was rapid responsibility. And I was like, oh man, that is so cool. When we take ownership and responsibility and we leave judgment and being so hard on ourselves. Our generation today is now about being expert. You're expert at this. You're a leader in that, and everyone is looking for that. if we let people know that we have got this excessive behavior that we're hiding behind, we're no longer that expert, that leader, that go-to person. The facade falls away. If we release that kind of stuff and just go, look, I'm really just honoring that, yes, as much as I love doing this, I know I'm taking it to somewhere unhealthy, taking that rapid responsibility, but then taking it one step further and either break that pattern yourself and either stop the amount of exercise you're doing and not replace it with something else, or then go and seek help. There's only two ways that it can go, but it always starts with that responsibility, because you already know, your intuition, your soul, every part of your being is saying to you, hey,
it would have been every one of those injuries, right? Breaking the foot, can you please stop? Breaking the shoulder, can you please stop? Getting bitten by a pit bull, can you please stop? You know, and if I had stopped in any of those moments.
And the ribs, broken ribs.
Broken ribs, can you please stop? You know, my body going like, we really need to be done. We really need to be. It's an interesting thing though, because although that is the case, and I may have been able to listen to myself, the culture of some of these sports
100%.
requires you to never miss a single. I remember breaking my foot and I was told, just come in anyway, just, you know, at least watch. And what I really needed was to be with myself and be still. And so I chose something in between, which was to go get as high as physically possible and look at none of it, because I was neglecting what I was being told to do by the place that I love, that I thought had all the answers, but also I was neglecting myself that really did have all of the answers. So I'll just do nothing and hide and disappear.
But we will always stay around when we're hiding. As I say, you never see an addict hanging out with a super healthy, balanced person. You need to be with the people that are doing your jam. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you not only break that habit, you also have to look at the people in the circle that you're around and start making some conscious choices. And it has to be conscious, because by the time something has formed a habit, regardless whether it's hiding, overtraining, whatever it is, once you have moved into an excess behavioral habit, you have to be able to break the habit and all the things that associate with it. Like when people have given up smoking, it's like, well, I associate smoking with having a drink. I associate smoking with having a cup of coffee. So that it's not just about breaking that habit of I'm not going to smoke anymore.
My whole life has to change.
I have to stop associating that with coffee. I need to be okay that I might not have, I'm going to feel uncomfortable when I do have that drink, or I need to make those changes. It's never just making a change in one area. You have to look at it all and what it takes to be able to make that, or else you're only ever going to slide back to that. An addict's only ever going to hang out with an addict until they make a conscious choice. So I think it's about deciding to make that consciousness. So you didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough knowledge around for you at that time. And I think that's really important to remember, is that it's only now with all this knowledge that you have and the time that we're in now to be able to honor you did those things at that time because that's all you knew and things were not available. It's now very different. So any behavior that you choose to do now, that's very different, a very, very different pathway than what things were when you were training. And I think that's important to remember, is to honor what was available, what you knew and what you could do back then in your past, as opposed to what decisions you make based on the knowledge and availability now.
I think that's really important for everyone to understand in when they're starting to look at these things, and then you start judging yourself for the behaviors you've done and why didn't I get this right? And all of us do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. Mm-hmm. And if, like, really honestly, I don't take any of it back. I would never take any of it back. I did the absolute best that I could with the knowledge that I had.
Well, as I said to you, you were always gave everything 100%. Yeah. Whether that's training or addiction, everything got the same. And that's what we have to understand, is that those qualities that we possess, we can express them in positive and negative
ways.
But there's still an expression of ourselves that is wanting to be seen, heard and validated. And we haven't been taught to be kind to ourselves.
No.
We have never been taught that it's okay to forgive yourself, that maybe you, even sometimes when you have abundance of knowledge, sometimes you're still going to make mistakes, because we are humans. Yeah. We are here to know that you are, the way that we learn sometimes is through our mistakes. It doesn't feel good and we can berate ourselves about it. But if it helps us learn something and come to a bigger evolution in our growth, then sometimes we have to go that pathway. But if you keep
The same
Don't get me
thing
wrong.
when you
But
know.
if you
When
keep
you know,
being
you
a
know.
dumbass,
Yeah,
that's just like, you're stupid. You can't change stupid. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
100%. I think that's really important as well, to have the freedom to be able to do things wrong and go, oh, that's what that feels like, and come back.
Yeah.
So like one of the things we do in the programs that we're running, we've got all these different modalities, and it's like, yeah, look, this is how we should eat. That's not anti-inflammatory, and this is how you do fasting, and this is how you do these things, and here's some tools that you can use. But you know how, like, you know, fight diets, right? Here's your fight diet. You eat 1 gram off and you're in massive trouble and you're going to get fat. And, you know, that's the kind of story that you get told. Culture, right? Which is what made me so sick and have an eating disorder and all of those things. But to allow people to go, yeah, all right, go do the thing that you really want to do and see how you feel.
What people are probably may not be aware of is that when we have experiences, our thinking, our emotions, everything we do has a neurological pathway. If you do not train your neurology to something new, it only identifies the old, and it will naturally take you back to that. So learning that we are both a teacher and a student at the same very time, and when we're learning to implement something new, is about matter of not just training your mind to do something, but changing your neurology, changing your cells to be able to feed yourselves almost like a computer, feeding in new bits of information and being able to understand how that feels, how does that look, how does my thinking adapt, so that the more that you can recognize that, the faster you can recognize when something's awesome. Your neurology is going to fire and it's just going to be like, this is awesome. You can identify that quicker. The same way as being able to identify when your neurology is telling you, don't do this, the faster we can make those changes and redirect, the more powerful we can become.
Which requires stillness to actually be aware and acknowledge that sometimes, right?
Making changes is all about being in the consciousness.
Yeah.
The only way patterns occur is through consistency. So one of the things that I put together is this little analogy CPR: consistency, persistence, and repetition. The only way you're going to implement something new is through consistently doing something. Being persistent and understanding that some things that you do at the beginning, so just say, for example, you go to the gym and it's the first time you've never been before. You have to show up every single day. Persistently, there are going to be many times your brain goes, I don't want to be here. This is shared. I'm not good, blah, blah, blah. So you have to fight yourself, being persistent to overcome that part of yourself that as you move outside of your comfort zone, every part of your ego is going to revolt back at you. And repetition, just show up and do the shit and then it's done. And through that consistency, persistence and repetition is how we create a new habit that then falls back into the unconsciousness. But in order for it to develop that, you have to stay in the consciousness. And it's hard, but it's not actually quite that difficult. It's the brain is like a little toddler.
It's the anticipation of it, right?
It's all the stories we have.
The stories. So the anticipation of being still for 5 minutes to decide to do the right thing rather than getting really manic and, just quickly. Because it's the stories, right, that you start going, well, I don't have time and I'm not good enough and I'm probably not going to get there anyway, which is actually not us.
No, it's that unconditional stories.
Yeah.
That we have put in this little treasure chest at the moment that we feel like, I'm not sure if I know what the right decision is or what I'm supposed to do right in that moment. Sometimes we think we need to make a decision right there and then on the spot. Sometimes people take a little bit longer to be able to come to that conclusion of what is the right thing for me. I think we're always in such a hurry. Mm-hmm. You have a look at the go-to words: rapidly accelerate, hustle. Everything's about how fast we can get there. Humans, we actually thrive more when we're more patient. Don't get me wrong, there are times that stuff needs to just get done quickly. There's no denying that. But that doesn't need to be the way that we run our whole life, because then it's just like being on a roller coaster that's out of control, and then we feel like we have no choices. And we feel like we don't have any direction. We're just robotic.
Reacting rather than responding to things.
100%.
Yeah, 20 years of my entire life.
Being still is not the easiest thing, because we think that we actually have to answer every single thought that's in our head.
Yeah.
And that stillness isn't always about outrunning your head. Sometimes that stillness is about actually being still with your own thoughts. Sometimes we want to be distracted by everyone else's thoughts. The thing I always like to say as humans, as we are the most wisest people, you want to know what the right thing is to do for yourself and your healing journey or addressing anything in your life. Ask yourself the question from a third party. What advice would you give to someone? Because you will give freaking amazing advice to others that then you sit there and go, if that's what I would say to someone else, then that's the advice I need to take for myself.
I often do that, like in life, right? I watch myself start giving all this advice to other people and then have to take a moment and go, this is something that you need. If you can't shut up about it, you need to turn it back on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's hard to hear. Sometimes it's really like, what do you mean I have to actually lock myself in my room for 3 days and have rest? Like, I'm not pushing that hard, but I am.
I think sometimes it's not so much scary as I think sometimes we forget how wise we are.
Yeah.
We have a lifetime of knowledge in our mind that is accessible in a given moment. A girlfriend rocks up, she's got shit going on. You're going to be there, you're going to support her. You've got all this wonderful information. You can give that to yourself. Never forget how incredibly wise you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we don't often understand about ourselves is that we have this wealth of knowledge that we can help ourselves. We don't always need to be looking outside and externally. If we give ourselves permission to just ask
Our bodies.
ask our bodies, but ask ourselves powerful questions. Like when I did the NLP training and stuff like that, the one thing I learned was about asking empowering questions. And when you start doing that, you're like, when I'm in this, if I know that if I ask, most people when they get stuck will always get stuck on a why. Why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? I call was the last question. You need to go through the what was going on for you? How did that impact you? When are you going to make the changes? And then that answers the why something happened. But we go straight to that because we haven't been taught how to ask ourselves empowering questions. Learning about how we can be the most, I don't really want to use authentic or the best version of ourselves, but how do we learn more about ourselves? We've not been taught that. So we've not been taught how do we have these conversations with ourselves.
Can you say those questions again?
So there is a model within NLP which is about empowering questions. It goes why, what, how, when. Now, most people will start with the why. For me, I feel like the why comes at the end. Why questions is the reason we ask ourselves why is because there is a gap in our understanding. And the only way to fill that gap is to be able to ask a what question. What was going on for me?
What was going on for me? I love that. Like, what was going on for me in that moment? Or what is going on for me now?
Yeah. How was I processing it? How did this impact me? How was this triggering me? That's your how question. When do I want to make changes? When do I want to do something called what if I keep doing this? What will be the impact of that? They will then all answer the question of why this is happening for you in that moment. And when you learn to ask those questions, it helps you be able to identify and learn to start being able to articulate and language what is actually going on, because most people will stay in the superficial type answers. This made me angry. I was frustrated at that. But they're all superficial. They're our protective language we use. We haven't been taught to just go down and go, actually, I was actually really angry because I was actually really hurt.
Like there's always sadness under anger. There's always these other emotions underneath.
Not always sadness, but we have, as humans, we're designed to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
We have survival instincts. If you understand what your survival instincts are in different environments and different experiences, it helps you be able to understand why you might be using that protective things. But when we have language that articulates when we're angry, but we don't know how to be able to deep down. Like if you ever see anyone in like just using martial arts, you wouldn't go, oh my God, I feel really sensitive and vulnerable. It's like, I'm going to rip your head off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we haven't learned to come down to those, being able to articulate those language points because we stay in the superficial. So by being able to explore, it helps us learn to unlock different types of language to be able to identify how we feel. And there are sometimes that we are at a loss at words to be able to articulate what we're feeling, and that is okay. So going back to your question, learning as humans and giving ourselves that permission to ask ourselves empowering questions helps us to be unlock that wisdom that we have, be able to articulate what's actually been going on. And so therefore we're giving ourselves permission to be seen, be heard, be validated, but do it in a way that's loved and nurturing.
Yeah. I think
to honor that strength and resilience, but also that softness and nurturing.
But it also makes it really safe for everyone around us.
Yeah.
Like the ability to go away and ask those questions and come back to someone and say, this is what was going on for me in that moment. This is how I was feeling, and without ripping their head off or creating toxic environments.
Yeah.
Like, how many toxic environments are you unknowingly creating? I created thousands of them. You know, I was the toxic environment.
Get in line, honey. So is everyone at one form or time in their life,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Looking back on, and I thought I was I was in the right, and everyone's just a motherfucker. And
Yeah, you do
Right?
because that comes from the ego, and that's that strength and resilience. But probably one of the biggest things I learned was, for me, strength was this more of a real masculine thing. It was an honor thing to be strong. Over the years, I've learned that, and it's still, there are moments that it's sort of like, is like a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But the thing I've definitely learned was there is strength in our softness.
Oh yeah, more strength.
And it's not vulnerability, but in our softness. And for me, when I say softness, it's allowing those protective walls to come down and to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. Give yourself permission to just show up in that form of who you are in that moment. That is softness. That is love. That's that femininity. And it takes so much strength.
Because it's shaking in your boots sometimes doing that.
100%.
The courage that's required to peel it all off and, here I am and this is what's real.
Yeah.
I've found that in business, in managing teams, it's actually changed everything. And being able to, rather than be a manager and a leader that's like, this needs to happen and that needs to happen and why haven't you done it fast enough and oh my God and all of that sort of thing, being able to create that in a culture and a business, and it's really safe for everyone to have those conversations and to start those conversations first, even when I might have been reactive, and be able to come back and go, this is what was going on for me in that moment. This is how I would prefer to respond in the future. What's going on for you? How can I be of support and give you everything that you need? Keeping the boundaries in place and all those sorts of things. The entire team it becomes stronger. It's ready to uplift the whole business together because they're seen and heard and validated. And I can feel safe inside of it without having to hide myself from the team because I'm seen and heard and validated.
100%.
Now we get actual incredible business growth that will last for a lifetime because the culture is so strong because of softness.
And I think it's about shifting those words from using languages that identifies hierarchies. It's like, I am the leader and this is my team.
Yeah.
There's that subordinate. So when we look at it, it's actually more what you're describing is more about a collaboration where there's one person who's
got roles,
holding that vision and each person's bringing their own zone of genius. And if you give them permission to do that, but with structure and guidelines of what it is that you want, we start moving differently because we're a collaboration all with this big goal and end. There's just I think there is just such a metamorphosis out there happening on so many levels that we're starting to see things unfold that was just never, ever once there before. And we don't want those old structures and old identities because we know how much it held people back.
Yeah.
And how they in themselves, when anyone's ever felt like they're under someone, this always comes with resistance.
Right. Or if they're being told that they're wrong.
Or not validated, not seen, not heard, not seeing that each person actually brings, each person has this freaking just zone of genius. Like where
and you
there's
couldn't do it without them.
No.
Couldn't do it without. I couldn't do any of the stuff in my life without all of the magical people around me. And I need to be consistently aware of that.
And the magic that you bring to these people too as well.
And so it's like now it's just this one thing that we're doing and I just happen to be the person that created it.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah.
I think that culture can completely change if businesses start operating like this and leaders start operating like this. I think that if this type of work, because I do feel like that a lot of leaders and CEOs and big business owners, they're addicts. They're work addicts. And probably other things going on as well.
100%.
A lot of other things going on.
Yeah. 100%.
If the leaders that are holding the people in our culture could do this work and start to be able to articulate feelings and see and hear and validate their teams and see and hear and validate themselves, what happens when people can start going to work and love it?
Yeah.
And like they belong there and they're validated there and they don't have to come home, and then they're not going home and running away from all of that horrificness that they're dealing with 8 hours a day, every single day. And that's where some of this escapism is caused from as well, right?
100%. And because there's part of our human structure, Tony Robinson says that one of the 6 core needs is community and connection.
Yeah.
We're all looking for that in our friendships, in our work environments. We crave that. It's part of our human DNA structure to have those things fulfilled. So when those things are not landing, there's such a disconnection, and so many other emotions arise from that. Like when you think about it, we're at work for 8 hours if you're so unhappy, like that then leaks into like your family life, your own relationship with yourself, your relationship you have with others and everything like that. Like we are looking for those connections.
Yeah.
And
We've got this perfect environment we're going to every single day. Why can't it be happening there?
That's
It's
right.
ridiculous.
So as you said,
Yeah.
I think there is starting to be that shift and change where people are coming together saying, hey, this is just not acceptable and I won't do that. And people actually having a voice now to say that, and people actually stopping and listening. Not all, and we're a little bit slow, but there is progress with that happening. And the more people like yourself that are actually collaborating and bringing these beautiful visions, we're actually seeing that we don't have to do business in what was classified as a traditional way. There is more than one way of pathway of success, and everyone's idea of what success looks like is so very different. But when we can be around people where we feel connected and community and build something magical, man, that's where the shit happens. That is where you're actually living true happiness.
And then you can have all the things, right? Like how many times I've been told in my life you can't have everything, like pick a thing and do that. And like it nearly stuck, that story so nearly stuck. And I was, no, like it's not true. I'm absolutely going to run 3 businesses, and I'm going to do jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to do really well at it. I'm going to win all of the things, right? And I'm going to travel all of the time, and I'm going to have a family, and I'm going to have beautiful friends, and I'm going to have all of it.
Yep.
I'm just not going to do it neurotically or manically.
Or done in the way that other people think it should be done.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is breaking the mold today, is now we're breaking the molds of how we've been taught that how things should look or how it should be done to get to this end point. And it's not. I think they become more of a reflection of other people.
And it's hard to be out in the world like that when you're trying to do it a little bit differently, and everyone's sort of like, whoa. You can't just train twice and compete and win everything. So, well, I am.
Watch me.
You know, you can't just be on holidays all the time and run a successful. Well, actually,
You can.
yeah.
And I think that's what's happening now, is that we are breaking those molds. People like yourself, it takes those ones that say, hey, you can't do this, for someone like yourself to come along and go, being a torchbearer, carrying the light for other people means that you have to break pathways. You do things differently. You're going to have resistance coming from other people, and it's a hard slog.
Yeah.
But you create that pathway for everyone else to go, well, you know what? She did it, so that means I can do it. So see ya, peace out.
It's actually really interesting because one of the big resistance that comes at me was my dad, right? Because he's in business and he does all of these hard things, and I wish I could grab him and go like, just slow down, you know, like I want to
Famous
words. Right. The thing that I've been being told to all my life, but I'm watching it going, this is where all my patterning comes from. This is my belief systems that I've been taught. Fine, no worries, I'll undo it. When I'm talking about the way I'm operating in my life and hearing the resistance in his energy or feeling the resistance in his energy, and then me taking that on board, because there were still parts of me that I was hiding. So over the weekend, in telling all of my truth and letting that completely release, and you can have your way. And I've found all of my internal truth now, and there is nothing left to go, is this going to be perceived in any way? Because there was still a little part that was not quite brought in. And so all of that perception can just go away, because that was the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
And I like, what happens now? I'm 5 days after letting the people that I really felt their judgment the most, letting them see the entirety of me. And so that judgment that I'm putting on myself essentially, but feeling it from there, can drop away. And what happens now in integrating this?
Yeah, look, you won't know what it looks like, because you will, when you address something, or not address, when you process and give yourself permission to express how an experience impacted you and what story you created from that, we need to remember is that is your version, how your parents and what they take from that. That becomes about their journey, their experience, and how they choose to process that. That is not your responsibility. Not that means it's like, peace out, see you later. Like, I've done this stuff, you deal with it.
Have good luck.
But you don't know what's going to unfold for them. But just holding that space, that if they do want to come back to you and speak to you about something, then that door is always open.
Yeah.
And I think that's what just needs to come from that, is just patience and just persistence, and whatever will unfold. I'm now at a place that I can have conversations with my parents about this from a completely different perspective.
With all is forgiven.
Yeah,
and it's something about you. And
that's
it's just,
right.
It's
It's just
who I
about
am.
honouring that, how that experience impacted you, because you weren't doing it as a way for blame. And I think that's where the wisdom comes in. You're addressing, if you dealt with that 10 or 15, you would have been a person in trauma,
Yelling at
who's
them.
hiding shit, blaming them for your stuff. You're now not doing that. You're just saying, hey, I'm going to open up this little gem that was in my treasure chest that I kept buried, and I just want to share this with you. It's not for blame. It's just to share. When we share is so much more powerful than blame, shame, or guilt.
Yeah.
So there is nothing more to come from this. As I said, however your parents move, it's now up to you. You've gone, well, that's what closure looks like. When you've addressed with everything, there's closure.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to know, because now there's closure there. It's now, okay, let's just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And they say that when you can look back and do what you've done, which is come back and have a conversation about something that was incredibly traumatic, and you can do it from a really peaceful place, is the moment that there is 100% closure. And when you understand that, you're like, oh, I can actually, this is why you can talk about it so openly now, is because there's closure. You've looked at it from every angle, from every perspective, from every dimension, and there's nothing left to explore there. It's just now becomes a part of your journey in your lifetime. It's no longer an experience that's holding unprocessed thoughts and emotions behind it. And the same thing, like when I had my boat accident and I actually had to then talk about it. I was like, oh my God, but it got to the stage where I'd spoken about it that much. It actually was just like, I'd actually reached that place that I'm just telling you about. So that you get to the point of closure, there's nothing there to look at it. It was just a journey, an experience in my journey. And that's when you know that it comes to that end. It now becomes, when you talk about it, it's now, how can I share this wisdom that I learned from this experience, which is exactly what you're doing now. You're sharing your wisdom from such a painful part of your past.
I'm so glad that I waited until now to do it, because it was actually 1.5 years ago that it came through in a dream. You've got to do this podcast. Here's who you're going to interview. All the questions were down. And it wasn't until like right now that it all kind of fell into place. I even think 1 year ago there still would have been elements of blame. There still would have been elements of,
Yeah. 100%. And I think when you reach that point of closure, like where you're at right at this moment, it's that classic example and that expression that I love to use, which is turn pain into power.
Yeah.
Something painful, you're now turning it into something powerful. Podcast, boom, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You can share your pain, but from a powerful perspective.
And to be honest, like the purpose of the podcast really, like my big intention behind this is how can we change the way that addiction is looked at, because it's not just drugs and alcohol.
It's everything that's done.
It's everything.
Excessively,
right? And then also the systems that are in place to support people are not working.
Oh.
They're causing more damage.
Yes, gone are the days where you go and see a a psychotherapist or a psychologist and you sit there and you have a chat and you walk out the door. I look at a lot of American shows where it's like normal for them to go and see a therapist from when they're kids, and you have a look and they've still got shit.
Doesn't
and
work.
I think, how is that
doesn't
working?
work.
Why do you keep doing
yeah,
something? So I think we are definitely identifying, as we were talking about those changes in cultures and businesses, we're also recognizing that the pathway to healing, it doesn't look like the same for everyone.
And it's so multifaceted as well. Like, yes, therapy is a really good thing to do with the right kind of therapy.
But they're short term.
Yeah, but there's also like eating well is releasing trauma.
100%.
Exercising well is releasing
healthy mindset,
right?
working on your mindset. You've got to honor all of those parts
It's all
that
of the
make up
things.
you as a human.
Connection, being in connection and having difficult conversations is the most healing thing in the world.
Yeah, we talk about self-love. Now, most people don't even like who they are.
Yeah.
So self-love is the journey that you get to. You have to start to learn to like yourself.
Yeah.
Learn to like
accept.
yourself. Yeah, and like takes acceptance and all of those other things. Like if you have a look at what it takes to actually love someone, it's 20 like little particles that make up love.
Yeah.
We have to take our time to get to self-love. You can't just go from loathing yourself to, oh my God, I am wonderful and I love myself.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic. You have to look at all of those little steps that it helps you to take, and just not thinking that how fast can I get to the end.
It's just like it's so cliche, but learning to love the journey. You know, that
It's a wonderful analogy, but you got to admit there are times that you're just like, I'm so over the shit.
right. Yeah, I get it. So I've heard this. You love the journey, right? But I'm kind of like I can see where it fits.
100%.
Because it does take a really long. I'm really at the moment, like in these last couple of weeks, it was actually happened on the way to Adelaide. It was really getting it land for me. Is this slowness and all of this? You know, all of the time people have told me to slow down, and what it really is starting to mean for me is allowing it to take a long time, allowing things to take as long as they need to take. It's not about walk slower, train less and be in bed more. Like, it has nothing to do with that. It's just allowing it to take as long as it takes. And that's when the magic actually starts to land. And whether that is doing healing, all of the stuff that's going on, and getting rid of an addiction, or being an athlete and being a champion, or starting a business, or whatever you're trying to achieve, it's going to take as long as it takes. Mm-hmm. And when you can accept that, it actually starts to come a little bit faster.
It doesn't. I always say our soul's contract is on a different timeline than what we as humans are, and we are in a hurry. As humans, we are designed to be, how do we get from point A to point B? So then once I've achieved that, I can move on to the next thing. Soul doesn't work that way. Soul's like, okay, well, you're going to get from point A to B, but in the meantime, you need to detour and have a look at this emotion.
You need to be able to hold it when you get there.
And you need to do this work, and you need to have all of this stuff done so that when you get to the end, as you said, you can hold that. Or else you're going to get there and it's going to be like snakes and ladders, and you go back down the ladder and you start again and you do your journey.
That's the whole difference between like the force, the force and allowance, right? And I spent my whole life forcing everything, and then it would crumble. And I'd force everything back up and it would crumble. And I'm like, what's going on here? You know?
100%. And dreams don't have, this was one of my favorite things, and it was given to me on a magnet once, and it just stuck for like 15 years. Dreams don't have expiry dates.
Yeah.
When you are working towards something, there are all these little parts that take up to make a whole dream come true. And some will come quickly and some take a little bit longer, but they're all fragments of that one big vision. And being okay that you may not have it all, but you're getting all these little fragments and all these little bits of evidence that everything is unfolding. And when we learn to be patient and take that time and slow down to recognize them, we actually give ourselves permission to not be in a hurry. But it's hard. And
so
that
hard.
in itself is a journey. That's a journey in itself, you know.
I mean, I tell it to people all day, every day, and it's so jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu I've been at for 18 months, maybe coming on 2 years, something like that. And the whole entire experience is patience learning. The entire thing has been humility and patience. It's like uncomfortable and shit, and I love it, whatever. But how it's like being applied to my life as I slowly get to learn this actual patience thing. Like, you will get there and you will do better if you just hold it here for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And understanding that how you apply patience in one area of your life sometimes needs to be modified so it will look like a different version of patience based on a different perspective in your life. It's not always just a one size fits all. Like the patience that you have for your family is very different than the patience that you would have for your jiu-jitsu or your business or this or that. But it's still a form of patience. It's just they're at varying degrees, but they're still the same thing. And I think, there's so much to unpack. And I think there's so much within when we look at the journey of looking at addiction and all those kind of unhealthy behaviors and patterns that we all have, every single one of us has them, is that it's more than just taking care of one part of ourselves. It's being able to honor all of these aspects within our own self that require simple little modifications. They don't all have to have these big, huge, life-changing changes for us to get that end result. It's just little bits of changes done in all these areas of our life, and all of a sudden it just comes together and you just wake up one day and you're like, I got this sorted. I am feeling like I'm now in my flow.
Yes.
But it takes that consistency and that persistence to keep working at all of those little parts of ourselves and through repetition for it to get into that flow state.
Yeah. I really think it takes little bits in all parts of it at once, even if you're not changing your entire being in each one of those parts, is how can I get these components of my life and just make them a little bit better, just modify those all at the same time. Because if you just go to 8 million therapies and do all the emotional work, but you're absolutely eating crap and you're not exercising, you're still going to feel like shit.
Because eating unhealthy is a form of
Abuse.
Unprocessed emotions. So that's what I mean. And it takes that, even if you're just using nutrition as an example, and you've got poor nutrition and you need to you want to be healthy and you're healthy in other areas, but your nutrition is poor. It's going to take a lot of strength. It's not just a matter of, I need to eat better. You actually have to prepare for that. You have to have the mental aptitude that when those cravings come, no, you're not going to do it. You have to go to the grocery store. You actually have to buy the food. There's all these little steps.
Which then goes back around and it's like, well, why am I craving that? Why do I need to have that all the time? What am I not feeling? I'm not wanting to feel, so I'm avoiding it in that state. So all at the same time.
And what I'm trying to get to is that when we look at, I'm just changing my diet. Well, you're not. You're actually making improvements in all of these. So don't just say, I'm only just doing that. You have made 8 little changes, because at any one of those stops where you decided you didn't want to go to the grocery store, well, then you're not going to eat well. You know what I mean? If you decided that, I'm going to give in to my craving, that's not honoring that healthy nutrition. I think as humans, we don't give ourselves enough permission to actually be proud of ourselves. We think it only has to be in
perfection. When it's perfection, then
it's something that people can see,
or
something that I'm doing, or something that society tells us this is when we should be proud. Be proud of ourselves to be able to give ourselves. Today I got up and I felt like shit, but today I didn't give myself permission to buy into that. Today I decided I did this. I am really proud of myself. One of the practices I like to do, and some days it's harder than others, is almost like a little bit of a practice of gratitude, but gratitude for self, being able to say, what are 3 things I'm really proud of today? Some days I don't always get 3 things, but it makes me actually have to stop, because I think as humans, we are so predisposed to be able to pick out our faults so easily. We never give ourselves permission to be able to say, hey, I'm actually really proud of this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from an ego. It comes from a space of being able to prove to anything to anyone. It's actually being able to, 1, unlock our wisdom, 2, give ourselves the recognition that we are doing the best we can at the time that we're at that moment, and to be able to recognize that every day, some days is a struggle. But we put on a facade. We're all putting on a mask in some way, shape or form. And all we do is pick apart what we're not good at. How about of a society we actually learn to be able to sit with ourselves and actually say, hey, I'm actually really proud of this. It's pretty powerful to do it. There's a big resistance, and it's a bit of a messes with your head at first, because every part of you will want to go back to it. But when you start learning to practice it, breaks down some of our own protective barriers for us to be able to recognize that we have got millions of amazing things that we just don't allow ourselves to honor. So when we say that we need to be seen, heard, and validated and loved, we also need to give that to ourselves. We cannot always be looking for that
for it
externally.
outside. Yeah.
If the way in which we do that is to be able to recognize our own greatness, and
Then it starts coming outside anyway.
and then it is reflected back to us.
Yeah.
But that inner work isn't about always having to go to places to do that. It's about giving ourselves permission to do that in that moment and putting those practices in place.
Yeah.
And they're little small things that you can do. That's not about receiving recognition from anyone else, but actually being able to take stock and actually almost like put a mirror up in yourself and go, you're fucking amazing. Look at you. You're amazing. Yes, you have these faults and flaws, but so what? It's okay. I'm working on those. But these I'm really proud of. I've had to work so hard to get there to be able to come to this place, to be able to say I'm really proud of. But we don't just hide the things that we don't do great. But we also hide our own greatness.
It's something I really struggle with, is like that exact thing, because, you know, I'll win the Queensland champion belt and I have 5 seconds before I'm going, well, I'm not the Australian champion now, so everything's shit. You know, like it's 5 seconds. There is no you know, how much I've done that because I'm trying to get here. So any step that I take that is actually really amazing. Like sometimes now it's like, well, you cleaned the house all by yourself, Hannah. Well, like, well done. Because I struggle with things like that.
Yeah.
And the little things I really struggle with that because I escape into the future. You know, that's my like place to be where I don't have to be really present. You know, some people escape to the past, some people escape to the future. I'm really good at escaping the future and living in the planning. I'm going to get here, I'm going to get there, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to do this, instead of going, can you just have a look at what you've created right here? Because it's fucking beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what's changing. And I think that's when we are looking about the conversations that we're talking about, looking at the things that we hide. It's not all about our trauma and our problems. It's also about
our greatness.
So when sometimes we're masking our greatness because people will see it as ego, arrogant, egotistical. You think you're better, and it's not. It's like this, the tall poppy syndrome. If you recognize that, but if we start to get normal with it, and like, I think there's nothing cooler when someone goes, you know what? Like, how many times did I give you massages and something would go awesome? I'd be like, Rachel, you are fucking amazing. You know, and you guys would at first like sort of think, oh my God, that's weird. But then you just got used to it and we'd have a giggle about it. Do you know what I mean? But that's in one part of my life. I'm not always like that in other areas of my life. But when I can do something wicked, and that I only just did that with a client yesterday. I was like, Rachel, you're a wizard. And I was like, 30 years later, I still do that. I give myself permission to say, hey, and it still gives me a buzz, but it's not done from an ego. It's like, I'm really like, this still excites the shit out of me, and it's something I'm really proud of. And I think behaviors that we do to hide is because we're hiding our greatness. So we need to bring in introductions of other poor behaviours and poor choices as a way to be able to mask that, hey, I don't want to overshadow everyone or gloat or toot my own horn.
Yeah.
So therefore I'm going to hide it in this way to dumb down my greatness. And every single person has greatness in some way, shape or form, and in so many areas of their life. There are great mums, there are great dads, there's great teachers and leaders and business people. In every parts of our world, we have people that are innately amazing at them. We should allow them to shine, because when it's done from an authentic and a natural, normalized way, it's never gloating. It's like, hey, I do this really great. Come over to me. If this is what you'd like, come over to me. And therefore I can teach you. I'll show you what I have because I love what I do, and that's awesome. If we take it out of thinking that we have to gloat or brag or that it's bad or wrong, we have all this terrible language that attaches onto being able to share our own amazingness. That I think that not all poor behaviours are just poor behaviours. Sometimes we are dumbing down our greatness.
I really
because
feel
we're
that.
afraid.
Yeah. I feel that amongst women, it's really hard to share greatness and to be all of the versions of amazing that you can, because there's a deep-seated ancient, fight against each other that's kind of happened at some point. And to really rise up feels like you might lose connection in circles of women. I've felt that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. You see the transition happening for men, that they don't need to just be the provider. They're still someone's husband that wants to be loved. They're someone's dad. They're someone's brother. There's so much more than just a provider that brings a paycheck home. Women are the same. We have spent so many generations from, burning bras to women's rights to then all of a sudden there were generations of women that left husbands and had divorces, that then were single moms, that then went back to the workforce. Like the idea of what traditional world looks like is so different. Some men are staying at home because they are better parents out of the two, and the mother is the better provider. There is no right or wrong. And I think that's what we're trying to find at the moment is what fits well for me.
What do I like?
What is going to work well for us, and not needing that approval from others. And if you find that there is a lot of resistance that comes from outside, you then get to come back to that place of choice and go, is these my people?
Are these my people? Yeah.
Because sometimes we stay in circles
Oh,
with our people thinking
years.
they're your people and they're not really your
They're not,
people
yeah.
because, again, you're still looking for that connection and community.
Yeah. I think that the amount of hiding I've done because of that, because I didn't want to lose the community that I had, as toxic as it might have been in that moment, but it's terrifying. Who else is there on the other side? And there's always been better people every single time.
Yeah, but when you leave something, there's that void spot where there's no
which is
one.
so uncomfortable.
Before you meet the next one, and it's in that void that's where hurt and pain and vulnerability, and no one wants to stay there for long. You're okay, why can't I go from toxic to awesome? Make that transition.
So then being okay to be by yourself and give yourself the validation and the love and all the things in that moment while you put all the things back in place so you can attract that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That we're just evolving at such a rapid rate, but there's still so much old idealisms that we just have to learn to understand is that they are old idealisms. You get to make the choice whether you take them on or whether you don't.
Yeah.
They're like luggage. If you want to take that luggage with you, you pick that shit up, you take it with you. If you've had enough of it, you put the luggage down, you walk away.
Yeah.
Healing can be simple. Life can be simple. We can also complicate. Humans, man, we love to complicate the shit out of everything. Even the simplest things. You can say to someone, I want you to go to 100 metres down the road, pick up a loaf of bread and come back. And someone will go, oh, so did you say I should stop at the park, have a play, do this? Oh, do we only need bread? Oh, I've seen some friends. And then it's complicated.
Yeah.
So but that's how we learn. But sometimes we like to make stuff a lot more complicated. But there is just no right or wrong. It's just what feels right for you in that moment, and recognizing when something doesn't and making those
Doing
changes.
something about it.
Yeah.
Because you do hear it. You hear the voice. You know.
We cannot outrun our soul.
Yeah.
We cannot outrun our intuitions, signs, messages. They all show up.
And they just get louder and louder and louder.
Yeah, I always say we either make the conscious choice to move towards where our soul and intuition is guiding us, or you're going to be skull dragged. There is no in between. They'll go nicey, and then all of a sudden it's like, bitch, this is where you need to be. Get over here.
Yeah.
And you get there and you're like, sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, my God, yeah.
But we all do. Everyone has an inner voice, regardless whether you call it intuition, whatever the language is that you use for that internal conversation. We are all having internal conversations that are helping us navigate towards what is part of our soul's missions and what we are supposed to learn for our own personal growth and journey along each individual's pathway.
Yeah.
And no person's path or journey is identical.
And that allowing that to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
If it doesn't look like anyone else's,
Doesn't mean that that's right or wrong.
Yeah,
it's just your identity. And sometimes you don't know how things, like we were discussing, like you talk about you've got to do a podcast. Okay, well, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to make that choice, and then each step is provided for you along the way. But you just have to keep taking the step and keep asking the question of what's next, what's next, what's next, and it unfolds for you.
Well, it unfolded. It took it's a year and a half for it to unfold.
Yeah.
And had I taken the advice of everyone outside of me of do it now, start at your table, kitchen table, and I like, nope, that's a full-bodied no for me until we have it done well, where it can be videoed, because it's important. What we're saying here is important, and it needs to be on platforms that it can be easily, like, there's reasons. Full body no, I will wait. And the perfect timing, in absolute divine perfect time. I mean, even calling everyone, right? To call all of these names that I've written down in the book that I haven't spoken to in years and go, hey.
By the way,
I have some things to share. Can you please come and do it with me? Was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was absolutely terrifying. It took me, I'd pick it up and go, I don't remember what happened in that week. Something empowered me in that week, and I sat down and I called everyone, and I was really flabbergasted, like, oh my God, because everyone was like, absolutely, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And the moment in that of going, I might have been fucking up, but I have been enough of a beautiful person in my life that everyone's going to turn around and go, yeah, sure, let's do this.
Turns out even better than what you imagined.
Better than what I imagined.
But that was because, again, going back to what I was saying before about being able to recognise your neurology is now, you know when to be able to recognise what's a hard no. It's a hard no on an aspect, not the whole vision. But you could recognise that because you've trained it. And I love hearing that language, you know what I mean? Like, it's powerful that you honour what you think is right for you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's crazy, right? Like, sometimes the things that you hear that's like this direction and you're like, what? That makes no sense. But to just follow it anyway.
100%. And that is such a courageous journey in itself, because everyone's always going to have those soulful, directive conversations that don't answer the why, what, how, when, any of those kinds of questions. They're just going to go here and this is what I want you to do. And the human part goes, well, that's cool, but...
Or you tell other people and they go, what are you doing? That makes no sense. Like, stop. And I think it's really damaging for people to have to, like, for someone to say, this is what I really feel like I should do, and you to turn back to them and go, that's ridiculous and illogical, and like.
Sometimes I think until things progress forward a little bit, and this is just my belief, sometimes things are best kept to yourself, because it's amazing how many people's desires, dreams, decisions never unpack or ever come to fruition is because of listening to other people who can't see your vision, and you're unable to articulate it because you don't know what that looks like. All you know is that end point. How you're supposed to get there, you don't know just yet.
Or even the start point. You're told to walk this direction.
Because you can't articulate it, people think, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's something I've also found myself, that when I would tell people something really quickly early on, if it didn't unfold, then I felt like a failure. Or if I changed directions, then I told you it wasn't the right thing for you. And that just comes back and it just mirrors all these horrible fears that you've got in yourself.
The stories and
and then you feel like you're always having to constantly justify it yourself, but you were following what you thought was true. And I think so many dreams get destroyed because of other people's lack of understanding. So I think the one thing I've learned myself is that sometimes things take a little bit longer. Like, just as an example, like when I built my oracle cards, I thought that was literally just going to be a done, dusted, this is just going to be so simple. I'm so pleased I didn't tell anyone about that, because it took nearly 3 times longer than what I thought it was in time. And because I kept that real hard deadline, and I'd been conditioned to believe that if I passed that deadline, then I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't working hard enough.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I was working 22 hours a day. Luckily, I live on sleep deprivation and always have done, something I'm working on now.
Let's have a talk about that later.
Yeah, but it was like, I was just putting in so much, and I just keep feeling like I was a failure in some way, shape or form. And then I would sit back and I go, remember, dreams don't have an expiry date. That's your human existence, because you are showing evidence that you are showing up. You are doing the hard work. So I think when we start new pathways, start off being a little bit private, a little bit quiet, and then share what you're doing when you start getting a little bit more comfortable, regardless whether it's changing any sort of behavior that we do, but keep it a little bit private with yourself, and then think importantly about who you will share it with you, because there are some things that you can share with some people that they're great at giving you support and knowledge around only that one particular theme of your life. So they may be good for business or finances, but they're not the kind of person that you're going to talk to about relationships and emotional traumas. So I think we always have the right people. We just need to remember that when we start something new, to make sure that you go to that right person that's going to be the right thing for you. And if there is resistance from other people, it doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. It just means they're unable sometimes to see your vision, and it's not your role to
make them
provide
understand.
them with that vision.
Yeah. So you were telling me before we came in here today that you've had a dream that I know that you've had for a very long time that you're about to release. Do you want to tell us about that?
So being the massage therapist, I've always kept it pretty much people who see me now know that I work a little bit different. I'm not the traditional massage therapist. I've always been able to, what I call, decode the body, read the body, understand what's going on a mental, emotional, physical level. I always understood that every part of our physical body was a form of communication about an emotion that is left unprocessed in that area. So after many years, I'm finally opening up a course that will be accredited for massage therapists to learn how to be able to help their clients be able to understand themselves on an emotional level. So it will be called Decoding the Body, and it's about being able to understand what each physical part in our body, what emotional basis that is. So it's something I'm super excited. And that vulnerability of sharing this part of myself, because it's always been sort of kept under wraps for a very long time.
Especially in the environment, because you worked in gyms and with athletes, and so it's a weird thing. I remember you having what was that stuff called that smelt like weed that you put on my body? Moxie, Moxie.
Yeah.
And being this like weird, a little bit spiritual person upstairs in the gym with all these, tough, weightlifters and fighters and things like that coming to you, and you come up there and it's like this weird hippie woman.
Yeah.
And
that's so true, because the idealism around what spirituality looked like was so very different than what
it is.
It is for me. Like I didn't show up with the, I definitely got the unbrushed hair half the time, get out of bed and that's my jam,
but
but I haven't, I'm not that way. So I didn't want people to still have that identity that because I did that made me that weirdo. I still very much evidence-based, but I just couldn't deny that spiritual part within myself, connection to soul, because I was connecting to people's souls. I could hear what was going on inside of them. It was the following my own soul directive through intuition to know exactly what conversation to have with people, exactly what is going on in their body. I just couldn't deny that, but I just didn't want to have to scream it out to the rooftop that this is all I was, because I was so much more than that. I didn't know how to put a label on it, and I didn't really want to. That was the way I worked, and I love working that way, and all the people that wanted to work in that way
I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because what you often see is spirituality being over here and then the rest of the world being over here with their, I'm not looking at that because that's for people that wear hemp pants and have feathers in their hair and don't have a job.
Yeah.
And it can actually be both things. You can be an elegant business owner or be a rough-ass violent fighter and still be deeply spiritual human being.
Yeah.
And practice
be all those
connection
parts
with God and practice connection with yourself and spirit and all of those things.
As you were saying before, like people say that you can't have everything. Yeah, you can. You can. And it doesn't have to look. It can look any way that you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I would love that. I'm so gracious that after 30 years, I still have people, like as she said, reach out to me after all this. She's saying, you impacted me. Thank you, so grateful. And for me, when I get that and I see people leave differently than they arrived, I know that was exactly my purpose that I was putting on this earth for. Now this is my mission that I know there's a lot of other massage therapists that want to be able to do and maybe work the way that I do. And I just can't wait to share that. And so that we can I mean, I'd love to say I can heal the world. My way has been able to do that is the more massage therapists that I can get that know how I work, can have as many people that you can impact their world, then they share people.
It flows on forever.
Well, that will be my
know?
mission, and I just can't wait to be able to share everything that I've done and loved. And I'm one of the very few that are still in the same industry for 30 years and don't have busted hands or are still actually doing it and still actually thrive and froth and just still get a buzz out of it to this day.
Massage therapists quit after 8 years on average. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think made it different for you?
I gave myself permission to just be okay with it. I know the kinds of people that I like to work with. I'm comfortable. Like in that room, I walk in that door, no matter what's going on in my world, all of me shows up in that room. Do you know what I mean? And I don't deny any of the parts of myself when I'm in there. I'm passionate because it's more than just about, for me, it's not just about, I'm not just fixing a physical body. I get to be able to work on someone's soul, mental, emotional, physical,
it's
energetic.
Deeply fulfilling for you.
There's all these parts of myself that I get to work on. And I just truly, truly love that. And for me, that is... Transformation isn't always, I always see people walk out on a physical level having had a transformation, but I know they've walked out and they're like...
9 years later, they call you back up and say, hey.
Yeah.
Thank you for changing my life.
Yeah.
But seriously though, like if I were to go back into those moments and go, where would I have been without the people that were there? Like where would I have been if you hadn't pulled that out of me in that moment and said, you've got some shit to work on? How many more years would it have taken for me to sort it out? No one knows, but it's to allow the time that it takes, right? We are 9 years down the track, potentially 10 years down the track, and to be here now and go, well, that little moment right there. I mean, we did other work together. You're my business coach. We did a session of business coaching together.
We did some healings.
Yeah, we did some stuff together, and the effect that has, exponentially through a lifetime is incomprehensible. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, with being able to honour what our own wisdom is, each person I believe is put on this earth for something.
Yeah.
We all have some magic within us that if we give ourselves permission to express that in the way that you want to and how you want it to without conforming to what idealistically it is, we get to leave such an imprint that we just don't even know. You hope that you do, but you don't know. And you have these magical moments like sitting right here. But we have these beautiful magical moments like here now to be able to go, I am actually living my purpose. I did leave some magic behind. It's not just something I was hoping for. I'm actually now having all of these beautiful moments where I get that moment to actually sit in it and just go, I got to be a part of a magical moment because my soul connected with your soul to bring us together for this moment.
Yeah.
And to be in someone's world for a soul lesson that continues on years down the track, like it's hard to articulate, like just how cool it is. And when you get to do that, like with your podcast, everything that you do, you just bring magic. Like when we realize that, we are all sprinkling magic somewhere along the line. We don't always get the evidence of that for quite sometimes we get that to be a part of that magic right in that moment. But sometimes it takes a little while for that magic to unfold and then it all comes together and it's just like, it's so cool.
Which is why we've got to trust it. We've got to trust the
process
and the insights. And they're like, hey, just this way. Hey, say that thing. Do that thing, say that thing, walk this direction. Trust me. Yeah. Trust you and what it can turn into without you having any idea.
Yeah. Thing when I first started along my spiritual journey many years ago and the naivety that I still laugh at today, to this day, was like, I'm just going to throw everything at the spiritual path. I'm going to be like Buddha in a year. I'm going to be so enlightened. And I did. I just tried everything and anything and went on just the soul journey. And then 18 months later, stuff was still coming up. And it really did take me, and because I was only in my very, very early 20s at the time.
Yeah.
And it really took me about 3 or 4 years to go, Rachel, it's quite an epiphany and it's going to be a shocking revelation, but this is actually a life journey. And it was like, oh, so there is no end? Well, I better... Patience is something I'm going to learn. But it was the biggest insightful thing I had learned was that I am always going to be exploring. I'm always going to be unlocking something new within myself. Now, that doesn't always mean that that's something traumatic or something wrong. I'm also going to unlock so many talents and magic and beautiful things within myself. Learning about yourself is a life journey. Mm-hmm. And once I could get my head around that, it really did take a lot of pressure off myself to get everything right, to get everything perfect. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, OCD kind of person.
Yeah,
like to, okay, tick that box. What's the next thing? It made me sort of learn to just sort of like take a moment to just sort of breathe and go, there is no end to this. So stop thinking it's a race that you need to get to. And that took me a really long time to not just think about it from a logical, but actually implemented and then embody. There were stages. There were stages, like not just service.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Well, is there anything else that you think we need to add to this?
I don't know. I think the one thing I just want people to know is just learn to have a good relationship with yourself. Learn to be kind to yourself. Be patient. Give yourself forgiveness. And remember that we always have that wealth of wisdom.
I think that's where it all comes down to at the end of the day, like the breaking away from any type of addictive behavior or neurotic behavior or manic behavior or whatever extremeness is the relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And that then turns into the relationship with everyone else.
Yeah.
Which voids the need for any of it.
100%. And the pathway towards healing is different from everyone else.
Yeah.
So just experiment.
As is the pathway to greatness.
Yeah, that's right. Experiment, explore, try things. You're never going to know what you like and what you don't until you go out there and give it a go. But just don't think that it just has to be done in a traditional format. There are so many opportunities out there for you to explore healing in different ways.
And I guess on the theme that we were talking about is this: if you feel like you're hiding from anyone or the world, then that's probably a moment to go, well, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, change. Yeah. It's time for change.
The
moment that conversation is brought up, it's...
Am I hiding anything in my life if there is something needs to change?
Yeah, you already know that you're hiding that. It's just a matter of making that conscious decision to accept that's what you are, not beat yourself up anymore, but then moving it towards healthier pathways of choosing different options.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's all it is. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I love this so much. I guarantee you'll be back.
Yes. Awesome. I'll be happily back.
Thank you.
Thanks, love.